mean, the truth is I love to talk about herbs all day, every day, to anyone who will listen, and most of the time that's no one. So, except for Lola. Lola will totally listen. And Faith by proxy, so. But I think the fact that you're all in this room speaks to the fact that all of us, and maybe all of us, maybe not all of us, but some of us definitely feel like maybe there's a little bit something missing. We are inundated in our modern lives with our computers and our cars and our roads and our busy, and our quick meals and our convenient everything. And so we're still sick and we're still tired and we don't feel our best. And why? We live in this amazing, wonderful, technologically advanced age. Why are we not all thriving? And maybe the answer is because we've put something to the side that maybe we shouldn't have. And maybe it's time to slow down, and maybe it's time to get back to the things that actually nourish us. And I have come to experience over the last over a decade that plant medicine, herbalism, nutrition, honing in on truly nourishing lifestyle practices can fill a lot of that void. I started my path of learning about herbs as a young mother, and I always wanted the best for my kids, right? Like from the very beginning, as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I started voraciously reading anything I could get my hands on about breastfeeding, about childbirth, the whole thing. And that was sort of my gateway to the natural healing world. I wound up having a home birth in California with a midwife there. And other than my birthy inclinations, I was like, it doesn't matter what you eat. It doesn't matter if it's organic. I went to this potluck in San Francisco, and I brought with me these gorgeous sugar cookies with blue frosting and pink frosting, and I show up all excited, and no one there ate my cookies. The kale salad went fast, but my sugar cookies were left by the wayside, and I was like, why? And it was years and years and years before I realized why those cookies weren't touched. But here we are today. The reason I chose tonight's topic, herbs, nutritious herbs, all of the herbs that provide the missing pieces, is because there are so many missing pieces. We live in a world that's completely of calories galore, right? Every time we turn around, we've got calories everywhere. But we are living in a time of nutritional famine. I am not exaggerating. The food that we eat has been denurtured, denatured. Our agricultural soils have been worked to death. Season after season after season, well-intentioned farmers dump NPK fertilizer, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus fertilizer on the same plot of ground, trying to eke the crops out of the soil that's spent, that's now inert. Like, plants are just like people. They need a wide variety of nutrition as well. And if they're only getting nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, they may look like plants, they may act like plants, but they are missing vitality too. And when the plants are missing vitality, then the farmers have no choice but to douse those same fields with pesticides and herbicides and all these other things to try to keep these poor, sad, sick plants alive. The result of that is that the food that we eat, that we buy in the grocery store today, has 50 to 90% less minerals and vitamins than it had, 100 years ago. One of my favorite examples, I studied with Paul Bergner, who is a world-renowned, incredible herbalist to the nth degree, and he wrote a book, The Healing Power of Minerals, 100 years ago, I don't know, in the 90s, literally in the 90s. And at that time, with his research, he uncovered that the apples they were eating, I don't remember when, let's say 1913, 1920, I'm not sure. For every one of those apples in 1990, you would have had to eat 23 apples to get the equivalent nutritional content. Like, that's a lot of apples. So, enter nutritious herbs. We have a cornucopia of amazing plants that surround us, that are still in their natural habitats, that we can grow in our gardens, at our disposal to fill in the gaps, to fill in the void. When I started as an herbalist, I had kind of fallen into the this for that trap. You know, I first started, like, I hung my shingle and started telling people, I'm an herbalist, you can come see me and I'm gonna make you all better. And I really seriously thought at the time, I really did, that I was gonna give people adaptogens and bitters and nervines, and I'll teach you what all those are if you don't already know. I was gonna give them those and they were gonna get all better. They didn't! It didn't work. It was like, I've read all this stuff, look, this herb book says it's antimicrobial and antifungal and it's gonna cure hypertension, and why is it not working? So I started studying some more, and I started studying some more. I did a few more programs, and in 2020, during COVID, I had the opportunity to work out of a free clinic in Omaha. And they previously had been brick and mortar, they had been in person, and then COVID obviously drove them online. And so at that point, they were offering an internship program. I applied for it, I got the gig, and then I started seeing clients online. I worked for them for 2 years. And in all of that time, and all of the people I saw, there was only one case that I felt like, that guy got better! And do you know what it was? I did not give him an herb. It wasn't even an herb. I convinced him that he should quit eating dairy. He had dairy intolerance, and he had horrible gut aches, and herbs helped. There was a whole bunch of herbs that we gave. We gave him teas that helped sped the process along. But at the end of the day, it was what he ate that was making him sick. And it's what we're eating that is making us sick. You can lay at the doorstep of almost all of our degenerative diseases, nutrition. So we're gonna fill in the gaps. Today we're gonna fill in some gaps. I know some of you probably have worked with herbs before. Some of you probably are completely novice. So we're gonna start at the beginning too and cover just some stuff to know about herbalism in general, to help you start navigating that world. Herbalism kind of has its own language. We like to talk about emmenagogues and carminatives and things that sound really fancy, but with just a little bit of exposure, we can demystify them pretty quick. And then it's actually working with them, like demystifying the process of actually like making a tea. What is a tincture? What's the best format for which plant? Because there is some nuance. Okay, let's start with nettle. You absolutely positively cannot talk about nutritious herbs without talking about nettle. I might have mentioned, I did mention at the beginning that my first introduction to this world was through the natural birth community. And we were all pretty like hard charging. We didn't want to give our babies anything that they didn't need. And so at the time on the list in my mind was the vitamin K shot. My intention was, hey, I'm gonna have this natural birth, I'm gonna be nutritionally replete when I go into labor, it's whatever, all the things. I wasn't gonna do the vitamin K shot. So in the crispy, crunchy, birthy community, everybody was chugging nettle tea because nettles are high in vitamin K. Vitamin K is a fat-soluble vitamin. None of us that were drinking our herbal tea were getting the vitamin K. So there are some my point to that is there are some nuances. There are some things that we need to know so that we're getting the best out of our herbal preparations. Let's start with the bare bones. I'm gonna have you take and pass. Maybe I'll start in two directions. Go this way. Without a doubt, without a question, the easiest way to get herbs into your body is to make a tea. And it's really simple. Water is an excellent solvent. As we go deeper and deeper, we'll start talking about different biochemical constituents, and we'll start talking about different properties of plants. One of the best ways to think about it is like dissolves like. And so constituents that have a certain polarity will be absorbed and dissolved by, we call it menstruum. Whatever we're trying to dissolve it in, we call it menstruum. But we'll just stick with what we're dissolving it in for today. So, for example, water, let me see if I get this right. Water has a positive polarity, and as a result, we'll start pulling things that have the opposite, that have negative polarity. And just by the magic of phytochemistry, which is a new topic of interest for me, it's the most universal solvent. You're not going to get the entire spectrum of all of the biochemical constituents in every plant. It'll leave behind some alkaloids, some other things, but you're gonna get a lot. You're gonna get a lot with water. So, where's my jars? Okay. Does everyone have their sheet? Mm-hmm. The fancy name for an herbal tea is an infusion. And to make an infusion is very, very simple. You take your plant material. I like, depending on how fluffy it is or how dense it is, I like somewhere between 1 and 2 tablespoons per cup. So this is a gallon, and so that equates to 1 to 2 cups of loose leaf herb. A half a gallon is a half a cup. A quart turns out to be a quarter cup, but pretty simple. And so if I had an herbal tea blend, or if I was just gonna make it simple for my gallon, like this tea that we're drinking today, I used a cup and a half of dried herb to get the flavor that you are experiencing here. Which I use that really bad.
It's delicious. I thought.
What's that?
I said it's delicious.
Thank you,
had 2
Lola.
cups.
My daughter is not biased. I did not pay her to say that. So you put the herb in the jar, you boil your water, you fill it with hot water, and you put a lid on it. It's really important to put the lid on. Here's why. Because we have all these biochemical constituents, we have all these different parts of the plants. The volatile oils are the most delicate and the most likely to escape. A volatile oil is an essential oil. It's the same compounds that react very easily with heat. Heat's the big one. What else? But I don't remember them all. But heat, for sure, is going to release the volatile oils really quickly. So what happens is you put the lid on, and the steam is carrying all those essential oils, all those volatile oils from the plant up and out of your blend. But if you put a lid on it, then those volatile oils hit the lid, condensate, and drip back down into your delicious tea, and you don't lose any of the constituents. I have on this sheet, you can see it kind of matters what plant parts you're using. So infusions are best for the parts of plants that are delicate. So the flowers, the leaves, the stems. This is an excellent method to get a lot of the aromatic compounds. Actually, really, if you really want to extract the volatile oils, oil or alcohol is a little better, but you're still going to get them. You're still going to get a lot of them with your herbal infusion if you've got the lid on it. Most medicinal herbal infusions, the trick is the longer you let it steep, the better. You're gonna get a different variety of constituents the longer it goes. You'll get more of the aromatic volatile oils with a shorter infusion. So like 15 minutes is great for peppermint. The longer you let that peppermint tea sit, the more the volatile oils will escape, but the more of these bigger, denser molecules you'll extract from the peppermint, things that are a little bit more bitter. So it'll be a totally different flavor. A fun experiment is to take something like peppermint, or chamomile is another great one, and infuse a bag of chamomile for 5 minutes, infuse one for 15 minutes, and then let one go for over an hour. And that one that you have let sit for over an hour is gonna be a whole lot more bitter, which can be a benefit. The bitter profile actually does a lot for our digestive system, and we can talk about that later. The next way to get the best out of your water soluble constituents is a decoction. So a decoction is basically the same as the infusion, except you do it over the stove. And so you'll take your pan or your pot, you'll put your herbs in, then you add cold water. It's important to get cold water because you're going to get more constituents. You heat it on the stove until it starts to boil. You put a lid on it. You let it simmer for 15 minutes usually, and then you'll take it off and let it steep even longer. My traditional Chinese herbalist husband over there has a lot of herbs that he would decoct for a lot longer. And there are some in the Western Materia Medica that same, that you would want to simmer for as long as 8 hours. It just depends. It's all about getting to know each plant individually. And that really is the joy. This is a field of interest. This is a topic that you can stay really shallow and really functional, and just, you can think about all of these herbs as ingredients, right? Something to play with, something to indulge in, some
She made me try to play with some herbs one time. I would take a cup and then she'd make me do a single herb, like a new one, every morning. They were disgusting. There was like, what was the one bark one?
Lots of them, cramp bark,
No.
white willow bark.
No, it was the one that was slimy.
Oh, marshmallow root.
Yeah, that one.
Or actually, it was probably a slippery elm.
It was that. Oh my god. Traumatizing.
Well, but Lola is bringing up an excellent point, because there are all these different things that we're trying to extract. So let's take, for example, the tea that you are drinking tonight. This is the tea that I should have made for Tara about, I don't know how many months ago. This is a gut reset tea that I make. This is really important. I feel like I'm all over the place, so forgive me, but you know, it's one thing to get all these wonderful nutrients into our bodies through all these plants. It's another thing if our guts can't absorb them, right? And because of food intolerances, chemicals, stress, a lot of us have some pretty unhealthy guts. This tea is great for bringing down inflammation in the gut and a whole host of other things to help assimilation better. Marshmallow root. Lola was talking about marshmallow root. When you look at, or we were down that path. When you look at this, how it says with infusions, that the best things for infusions include leaves, stems, flowers, some roots, and berries. Okay, some roots. Marshmallow root is the prime example. That was the root I was thinking of when I put some roots, because you can infuse marshmallow roots. Most other roots and barks, you're just not gonna get a lot of constituents if you're just letting it sit. Marshmallow root has all these sticky, slimy polysaccharides that are incredible for coating and soothing mucous membranes. So if you've got a sore throat, if you have a tummy ache, if you have a urinary tract infection, marshmallow root is it. And the trick though is that to really get those mucilaginous compounds, you need to let it steep for at least 8 hours. So for a lot of my infusions, and especially when we're talking about herbs that we want to extract the mineral content from, I like those to steep overnight. So I'll tell a lot of my clients that I'm working with, okay, we're gonna get into a rhythm where every single day, before you go to bed, the last thing you're gonna do is you're gonna set up your tea. And the first thing you're gonna do every morning is you're gonna strain your tea and then enjoy it throughout the day. And so let's say, for example, the beautiful thing about these infusions is that they can keep in your fridge for up to 3 days. So you can make a huge batch and then have it on hand for a little bit. So let's say, you know, you're working on your gut health and you're drinking this gut tea and you want to steep it at least 8 hours because you want all those mucilaginous compounds from that delicious marshmallow root. You've put your cup of herb in here, you've poured in your boiling water, you've put in your lid, you're let it sit on your counter overnight. The next morning, this is your best friend. These canning funnels and then reusable coffee filters are my absolute favorite things to have on hand to make really big batches of infusion. And so then you can just take it here. You've got all this herby goodness in here and you can just strain. And it's super easy. And then you can keep it in your fridge. All of these teas, for the most part, work the same hot or cold. There's one little class of diffusive herbs that have this funny trick that when you drink them hot, they bring circulation to your skin and they make you sweat. And then when you drink them cold, they make you pee a lot. But for the vast majority of all of the herbs that I would recommend that you take, it doesn't matter if you like iced tea, drink them cold. If you like hot tea, drink them hot. The only caveat, and think of me what you will, I strongly advise you not microwave your herbal teas ever, because those microwaves are going to destroy and degrade the biochemical constituents that we're working so hard to extract. So, there you go. Oh, this is what I wanted to give you. So, we're gonna take and pass this. This is a awesome chart that my teacher, Paul Bergner, put together that details, can someone give me one? That details the mineral, thank you, the mineral content of common herbs. What's fun is for years, I would never have thought of marshmallow root as a super nutritive herb.
We're going to church.
We'll see you guys. Yeah, I would never, I would have thought of marshmallow root as this like delightful, delicious, important demulcent. A demulcent herb is the fancy word for an herb that coats and soothes tissues internally. There's a twin word to that, emollient, that means it coats and soothes and heals tissues externally. So the fun thing is, nearly all of our demulcent herbs act to coat and soothe and heal internally and externally. And that works because herbs tend to work best when they make direct contact with whatever tissues you're trying to affect. And so, if you're trying to affect tissues of the gut, it's no different than if you were trying to affect tissues of the skin. And so drinking an herbal tea is like washing your gastrointestinal system in herbs. It can be overwhelming when you come in contact with this great host of medicinal plants. My inclination was like, I want them all at once. I want to know them all at once. But truly, the best way is to go slow and take your time and really get to know one herb at a time. We'll go through, I hope to go through a lot of these herbs on this page this evening, but I want to give you, before we kind of dive into talking about individual herbs more, I want to give you how I think about learning herbs. So I'm going to send this sheet around, and if people want, what I'm going to try to do is put all of these documents someplace where our group will be able to access them. So if before class you wanted to print a bunch of these off as we talk about the different plants, you can take notes in a way that'll really help you. Feel free to take more than one of these. I made a whole bunch of them. out there. The way I was taught to get to know herbs was, it was kind of a little bit formulaic. The idea was you have at least 3 good herbal references, and I'll help all of you get in touch with different books, and I'll put together a bibliography of stuff if people are interested. But you get 3 really good herbals, and you take some notes and you read about your target plant, and then you make sure that you experience it. You take the tea, you take the tincture, you make the powder, whatever it is, however you're going to consume it, you do a tasting. And there are some things with plants that give you a lot of hints as to what they're going to do right off the bat. So let's say, for example, you take a drink of tea and immediately your tongue starts to tingle and tighten, and you can feel the tissues of it like pucker up a little bit. The chances are that plant has tannins in it. It's the same biochemical constituent in wine, and red wine especially, that will make your mouth feel so dry. Though this is very, very common in the plant kingdom to make those tannin constituents. And almost invariably when you encounter that taste, those constituents are paired with the property of astringency. We'll say that plant is astringent, and the astringent properties of the tannins tone and tighten all of the tissues they come into contact. And sometimes they have a toning and tightening effect on tissues that they might not even directly encounter. A great example of that is a very common herb, a nutritive herb, is our raspberry leaf. So tonight we're going to be talking about a bunch of different herbs that I sort of think of like green vitamins. Most of that group, so that's going to be nettle, alfalfa, raspberry leaf, dandelion leaf. I'm missing somebody. Anyway, what do we got? All of those guys for sure. All of them have like this astringency. They're all, we haven't gotten to this yet, but they're all cold and they're all dry. So when you look at your sheet here, you have parts used. So you would write down roots, or you'd write down aerial parts if you used, the stem and the leaves and the flower, whatever, berries, etc. Taste. So the taste, like I said, will tell you a lot about a plant. There's the bitter principle. So these bitter plants almost invariably play a role in waking up digestive secretions, all the way from saliva to bile to gastrointestinal juices, all the way down. Sweet tasting herbs usually turn out to be berries, but not always. They're often very nourishing, and they can often also be moist. That taste is your first clue of what is this plant going to do for me. Then when you get down to temperature, now temperature, humidity, and vital action. I approach herbalism from a Western paradigm, starting all the way back with Egypt, being passed down through Persia, through ancient Greece, landing its way through Europe, and then eventually hitting North America. I won't say unbroken, because our lineage here in the West has most definitely been broken and is in the process of being revitalized. That's a whole nother tangent. In traditions like traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, they have a vastly longer unbroken lineage dating back, 8,000 years for China?
5.
5, all right, a long time. All of them, Greek humoral medicine, Ayurveda, traditional Chinese herbalism, all of them recognize the temperature and humidity of plants. And they recognize the temperature and humidity of people. So if you think about it, you can kind of, not invariably, not across the board, but you can think of your elder years are cold, typically cold and dry, right? Your perimenopausal years, so hot, right? You're hot, you're so hot. And depending on people's diets and their innate constitution, some people may be a little more boggy, a little more damp, a little more moist. You can tell in their tissues, you can tell in their digestion. Or similarly, people can be a little more dried out. You can tell in their skin. You can tell in whether they're constipated or not. There's this whole range of temperature and humidity. And it is so important, once you get a little further down the line, to really understand that, because it makes a huge difference in what herbs are right for you. A great example, I just got over the flu. It was long.
Oh,
and
she was gone.
I got to take a lot of herbs. It was so much fun. And I don't remember where I saw this formula, but I saw this formula to kind of bounce back, and it had, what did it have?
It was ginger.
Just super hot,
Yeah.
reishi,
Yeah.
and schizandra berry.
Right.
It was so, this whole formula is so warm. And I was like, hey, Cornell, can you make it for me, please? And of course, he acquiesced. And he's so sweet. And he thinks I know what I'm talking about. And he should have never given, I mean, he should have been like, are you sure you want that? Because I am perimenopausal and I am hot. And whereas this formula, like in general, in theory, would have been a great rebuilding post-flu formula to take, but I took about half of it and was just like, I can't drink this. Oh, I can't, this is so gross. Like,
It was a bad idea.
it was a bad idea. It was a really bad idea. So my point is, one of the fun things to get to know about plants is, are they hot? Are they dry? Are they cold? Are they, and it matters. And it's amazing. Okay, but think about it. Okay, think about it. Imagine in your head, you have just eaten a big slice of watermelon. Is that food cold or hot?
Cold.
It's cold. It's cold. You know it's cold. You know it's gonna cool you down. It's the same like if you sit down, you're gonna eat a bowl of curry. It's gonna warm you up. You're gonna feel hot. These plants, I don't know how. I don't know how the thermodynamics, what magic chemical interplay happens between plants and people, but you drink a cup of peppermint tea, what do you think? Hot. Actually, peppermint tea is interesting because first it makes you hot because it causes circulation to your skin, and then as it does that, you start to maybe get a little moist in your skin, and that cools you down. So there's fun stuff ahead. That's a little preview of upcoming adventure. The other thing, okay, so vitalist action. I'm a vitalist. Vitalists share the belief that there is an animating spark. The Holy Spirit, prana, chi, I don't care what you call it. It's the thing that gives life. We are far more than just the chemicals and atoms and molecules that make up our body. Those things are stardust by some crazy, who knows how it all came to be. I have some hunches. I bet you have some hunches too. But life has been breathed into us. We're more than the sum of our parts. And vitalism has the belief that when you get out of the way, when you bolster life's processes, when you eliminate obstacles to cure, then the body, then that vital force does its job and will harmonize itself. And that is a long tradition. Harkening back, there was, I don't know, it's a long tradition, I mean, probably even before this, but there was a time in North America when the allopathic doctors were doing a lot of bloodletting and giving people mercury and aconite and killing people, not making people healthy. Like it's not going well for the allopaths until penicillin was discovered. And the kind of the first move away from some of that was the Thomasonians. And that guy was like really looking for natural ways to help people get better without bloodletting, without making it worse, right? And from the Thomasonians came the physiomedicalists. The Thomasonians were really like, weren't as interested in learning anatomy and physiology, and the physiomedicalists were like, yeah, but that'd be a good thing. Let's do that too. And they were really some of the first schools. The physiomedicalist physicians were some of the first schools to really start digging into herbalism in the New World, in North America, in the 1800s. And they had this idea of vitalist actions. So basically the idea that there are plants or substances that will either stimulate the vital force or relax the vital force. And what's crazy is, I wish I had brought this formula. There's a formula with 3 herbs, lobelia, cayenne, and myrrh. And all you do is take 1 drop of this alcoholic tincture, and you just feel everything in your body go, woo! It's the same. You even got people cold plunging, and props to them, except they're so brave and strong.
It's not that bad.
Woo! But that cold plunge awakens the vital force. That stimulates the vital force, right? Like you get out of that and you go, whew. Plants can have that effect too. So all it takes is 1 little drop of this myrrh, cayenne, and lobelia, and you go, whew. You can feel it. That is stimulating to the vital force. And 1 drop, right, that's not having a chemical effect. And it's happening so fast. That's not chemistry. That's not by, that is some other thing that's happening when you experience that. Similarly, you can take certain herbs and they are relaxants. What are some good ones?
Chamomile. Wait, how do you say it, babe?
Chamomile's good. The one that comes to my mind is because I'm just newly falling in love with this plant. I'm just newly getting to know this plant. Is white peony root. And my experience of when you take the tincture of white peony root, it's like, you feel like someone like put a blanket on you. Like you're just like, okay. That's a relaxant. So as we're getting to know all these plants, as we're talking about them tonight, I'll start talking about whether they're hot or cold, moist or dry, relaxing or stimulating, and it gives us sort of a framework. So I like to learn by starting with how are we all alike, and then how are we special. So the green vitamins. We've got these green vitamins. We got nettle. Nettle's a superstar, except it tastes like fish food. We got alfalfa. We've got red raspberry leaf. We've got oat straw is a good one. Oh, we have horsetail. Horsetail's great. Almost, not all, but almost all of those are cold and dry. Cold and dry, cold and dry, cold and dry. Oat straw is more neutral, and oat straw is not that green, so we can even take it out of the green vitamin category. Or oat straw is like more pale when you see it. So the dark leafy green ones, raspberry, dandelion leaf. Anyway, all these guys, all of them for the most part are cold and dry. Most of them are very astringent, so that you'll get that taste on your tongue, and it's toning and tighten tissues. We're going to circle back to raspberry because I was like, do you remember how I said most of the time for herbs to work, they actually have to come in contact with the tissues? Well, magically, raspberry leaf will tone and tighten your uterus or your prostate. Did you know that the tissues that become your uterus in utero are the same tissues that become a man's prostate? Like before they're differentiated, those are the same cells. And so after we divide and we decide, we go, some go XY, some go XX. The men with prostates can benefit from the same toning and tightening that women who have been drinking raspberry leaf to tone and tighten their uteruses, pre-gaming for having babies. The same. I have always found that very fun. But that's what raspberry leaf is known for. Raspberry leaf is known for its ability to be a uterine tonic. Well, I think in large part The reason that is because of its mineral content and its astringency. They kind of work together. But in our minerally bereft world, one of the things that is really like hitting critical awareness right now is magnesium, and how depleted our soils are of magnesium, and how important magnesium is for over 300 enzymatic functions in your body. Liver detox, keeping your heart beating, making neurotransmitters in your brain, like all sorts of stuff. Magnesium does all sorts of stuff. But the other thing that magnesium is really super crucial important for is keeping your muscles at the correct tone and tension. So, in your muscles, when you go to either contract them voluntarily or involuntarily, you have calcium channels. And for the most part, you're supposed to have magnesium hanging out inside of those calcium channels. And when it's time to contract your muscle, the magnesium moves out of the way, calcium enters the channel, contracted muscle. But what winds up happening, interestingly enough, we still have quite a bit of calcium in our diets. We get calcium obviously from dairy, but also from dark leafy greens. It hasn't been as depleted from our soils as some of the other micronutrients because like potatoes, for example, you can't grow potatoes unless you add some calcium into that phosphorus, nitrogen, potassium mix. So we get some calcium. The problem is we don't get any magnesium. And the magnesium that we do get, our body prioritizes liver detox and all sorts of other more important things than keeping your muscles at the correct tension, right? And that's like the last thing to go. But the magnesium is supposed to be stored in your muscles. And so when your body doesn't get enough, it strips it out. And that's when you get all sorts of muscle cramps. And so I think in part, like when you're talking about uterine contractions and the efficacy of uterine contractions, having that correct balance between calcium and magnesium is part of what makes that whole thing work. Yeah.
Fancy science words.
What's that?
I said, ooh, fancy science words.
Well, I mean, and I think that's the role that all of these like green vitamins, they all kind of have their own special superpowers, but at the end of the day, all of them can be taken and used interchangeably to some extent, as long as your constitution allows, to get different micronutrients. And the nice thing about having a group of herbs like that to switch out is that you really don't want to take the same one herb indefinitely. We need a variety, just like we need a variety of fruits and vegetables. We don't want to eat the same thing day after day after day. We don't want to take the same herb day after day after day, year after year after year. We want to be able to mix it up. And so that gives us some stuff to play with. Let me go back to nettle. I love nettle, sort of. I think nettle is gross, but it's so important. And I wanted to really love nettle. When I first started learning about herbs, you really couldn't be an herbalist unless you drank at least a quart of nettle infusion every single day. You had to carry it around in your ball mason jar.
Amen.
It's true, right? It's true. The problem is nettle is cold and dry, and cold and dry, and cold and dry. And, you know, I'll tell you, when I was really hard charging and I was gonna drink my nettles, I did it for about 3 months. And I will tell you, in those 3 months, I had some of the best, easiest periods of my life. Probably in part because of the astringency, but probably more likely because of the micronutrient content, because all that awful peril period cramping, 9 times out of 10, you can trace that right back to a magnesium deficiency. And so I was getting a ton of all this nutrient from the nettle, yay, but I started getting dry, so miserably dry. And had I known then what I know now, I could have corrected it. The magic is to mix the nettle with marshmallow root. They make best friends. One of the herbs, or one of the terms, the fancy terms that we use in herbalism is a corrugate. When you use one herb that has, let's say one herb that's really, really hot, to balance out the other herbs in your formula that are all cold. And so marshmallow root and nettle, when taken together, you can take it for a longer period of time without throwing yourself out of balance, because the super moistening, wonderful mucopolysaccharides in the marshmallow root counteract that super dry astringency of the nettle leaf. The other fun way to take nettle is to powder it. And the reason to powder nettle is to get those vitamin Ks, those fat soluble vitamin Ks that you won't get if you make an infusion, for example. Plus, you can take those powdered herbs and gently heat honey to the point where honey is like nearly watery, you know, when it gets to that point, and then you slowly mix in your powdered herbs to the point that you get a paste. And now you have something that's really shelf stable. You could keep it in your fridge if you wanted to, but you don't even necessarily have to. You can just take a scoop of that honey herby powder and mix it into hot water, or you can just eat it. The nettle is not so great. You can do it though. I made a jar of it for my sister when she got pregnant with her first baby, because anemia runs rampant in our family, and I'm like, I'm gonna fix your anemia with my nettles. I am sure she didn't take it. But I tried. I tried really hard. So of our green leafies, then there's dandelion leaf. Dandelion leaf is absolutely fantastic, full of all sorts of these micronutrients. You can see it on your great little chart. Its superpower is as a diuretic, and it has a toning and nourishing effect for the whole urinary tract. I put it in almost any UTI formula I make, although it won't cure a UTI on its own, but it definitely increases urine output. It can be great for normalizing blood pressure for that same reason. If you've got, if you want to help normalize blood pressure, it can help normalize blood sugar. And dandelion leaves are wonderful to pick out of your garden and your yard and throw in your salads, and all sorts of wonderful, wonderful nutritional benefits there. It has that bitter principle to it. They're definitely very, very bitter. Lola is drinking all the tea. No one else is gonna get any. It's so sad.
I'm thirsty.
Just fine. A lot of these green vitamin herbs have the ability, because a lot of them are drying and astringent, they're flushing. They can help flush out the uric acid associated with gout buildup. So that's a fun thing to have in your tool chest. Nettle is particularly good for that. You can mix it with stuff like tart cherry. It's wonderful, wonderful gout remedy. Nettle also has this wonderful anti-inflammatory, antihistamine sort of effect, and so it's great for allergy season. And then the other fun thing you can do with nettle, if you're really desperate or just curious, is a long time old remedy is to, the stinging nettle has these, all these little hairs on them. All those hairs are like little hollow needles that are filled with, I just looked this up today because I was really curious. Interestingly enough, it's filled with formic acid, which is the same as ant venom. And people for a long time thought that's why it stung. That was the often repeated, oh, it's the formic acid, it's the formic acid. Well, it turns out there's probably not enough formic acid in the stinger to be the thing that causes the sting. There's an uncalculable number of biochemical constituents in that little stinger that are all working together to create that itchy, awful, burny sensation. Some of it is serotonin, which I would never have ever in a million years thought was an irritant, but apparently topically it is. It's got histamines in it and N-acetylcholine, which I'm pretty sure is an amino acid. But the crazy thing about that, and this is something that we talk about a lot in herbalism, is that we don't really know 100% why any of these plants do what they do. We think we've isolated that one magical constituent. You know, if you've been around the block for a minute, you've heard about hypericin in St. John's wort that's supposed to be the thing that cures seasonal affective disorder and depression. And while that one biochemical constituent may have a little bit of that effect, it doesn't nearly have the same effect as when you take the whole plant and you get all of the thousands of biochemical constituents that we haven't even classified and figured out what they do yet. There's this synergy amongst all of those components that become what's doing the work. Nettle, stinging nettle. I wanted to harvest it once. We lived in this property a million years ago that was completely surrounded by forest, and you'll find stinging nettle here. You'll find it growing in like little clusters of trees, like underneath, down low, wet places especially, or more wet places. It's the sandhills, we don't have wet places, but at this one particular property, I thought that it was just teeming with stinging nettle, and I had encountered some and, you know, gotten the rash, and I was new. I was such a new herbalist, and I had been reading all about the wonderful magical medicinal properties of nettle, and I was like, I am sitting on a gold mine. And so I decided I was going to go harvest it all, and I called a good girlfriend, and we went tramping out, our kids in tow with our baskets and our shears, and asking permission of the plants, and, you know, like the whole, we harvested gobs of it, gobs and gobs and gobs and gobs of it, and took it home and hung it from my rafters, and it was so beautiful, and we were so impressed, only to have a really good herbalist friend of mine come over and be like, why did you guys get all this wood nettle? It's not stinging nettle. It was not at all stinging nettle. And if we had, our dumbasses had paid any attention, we would have looked close enough to see that there were no little needle-like hairs projecting all over the stem. I tell you this because before you go trampsing anywhere and decide you're gonna start harvesting stuff, it's really, really, really important to know for sure that that is the plant. There are a lot of lookalikes. I love curly gumweed. I'm kind of obsessed with curly gumweed. It is an amazing herb for your lungs. It's great when you have a cough. It opens everything up. It's relaxant. You know how like when you get a nasty cough and you're so tense and it just like, so you can breathe. It looks an awful lot like camphor weed. And camphor weed grows all over God and country around here. It is not curly gumweed. It is not safe to take internally. Like, thankfully I haven't made that mistake, but you know, it's important, it's really important before you go harvesting to know exactly what you're getting. Let me circle back around to our friend nettle. You may be wondering, how do I harvest that? Like, what do I do with all this formic acid and rampant warrior serotonin? Interestingly enough, when you hang it to dry, by the time it's totally dry, those little needles, all of that has become inert, and it will not sting you, and it will not hurt. People cook it and eat it like a pot herb. Same story. You can cook it fresh, and it will all of that whatever chemical cocktail in those stingers will have been neutralized, and you can eat it like spinach cooked. The same with making a tea out of it. So the only trick is when you're harvesting it, and I absolutely recommend that you do try to harvest stinging nettle. It's especially in the spring. It's very nutrient rich and tender and wonderful. As the season goes on, it's probably even more nutrient rich, but then it gets tougher. I probably wouldn't eat it at that point. The truth is I've never actually eaten it, but people do. Maybe this is the year, right? Like maybe this is the year. Now that I can actually identify it. We'll see.
Mom, I love you. I need to shower and eat.
Bye, Lola.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
announcing
much.
your departure.
Thank you for the tea. Go girl, you look so cute. You just like, I love you so much. You're amazing, beautiful, and smart.
Just go. Bye. Love you.
Yeah, thanks. Love you.
Open the door.
Thanks for the tea. Bye,
Say
guys.
it again.
I said, and what do you want?
Yeah, exactly. It is always something. So that's our friend stinging nettle. Oh, did I get to the point where you can whip yourself with it? I was going there. That's where I was talking about the needles, the needle-like projections. So there is like, I have never done this either. Do you notice like all the things that are gross I kind of shy away from, or hard, like jumping into freezing cold water?
It feels so good. It feels good. The gratification.
What?
When you hit yourself with it. Where are you going?
Oh yeah, sorry. All right, sorry. So if you have arthritis, the old timer remedy is to like whip yourself with a stinging nettle until you get yourself the rash, and then supposedly it is anti-inflammatory. I don't know. Again, I haven't tried this one.
It helps.
Have you done it?
Yes.
I will take my arthritic pain, thank you.
I want the story.
I have
Ellie, tell us the whole
nettles.
story.
Well, my aunt and I live in Benny, hello. When we were running the ranch, she has terrible, terrible arthritis. And she's an herbalist too. We both are, so we're like, let's go down to the river and just whip each other with these things. But yeah, it worked.
How long did it work for?
I wanna say maybe an hour-ish.
Okay. Did you get the rash?
Did I what?
Did you get a rash?
No,
How long did the rash last?
20, 30 minutes, not too long.
So the pain relief was longer than the
Yeah.
rash. So that's a win.
Yeah. Or you could whip somebody you don't like with it, you know?
That would, I mean, it does, I pulled it out of my garden once, not realizing what it was, way before I knew what it was, and just got myself all tore up, but. So those are some of the, oh, we've been in an hour, okay, good. I wanna talk about oats. Oats are great. Have you you've heard the phrase, sow your wild oats? That comes from this notion that oats really are tonifying and will give you the minerals you need to conquer all things. And I think there's some truth to that. I do think that there's a tonic nature to oats and oat straw. Unlike our other green vitamins, oat straw is more neutral. It's not super cold, and it's kind of moist. It's not super drying. It is very nourishing. It's very, very dense with mineral nutrition. My caveat is, if you're gluten intolerant, I wouldn't go near it. There is a peptide sequence in oats. It's called gliadin. It is found, that exact same peptide sequence is a part of the gluten molecule. So I haven't experienced this, but my teachers have seen people that are gluten intolerant that then take an infusion of oat straw and get a similar reaction as they would with gluten. So that's the caveat with oats. There's a couple different medicines made with oats. And when you start talking about oats, people often think that you're talking about the nervine or nervine, depending on which herbalist you're talking to. Nervines are a class of herbs that soothe your central nervous system. They are calming in general. Some of them, we're gonna go with mostly calming. There is a medicine that is made, and it's very specific, when there's a certain point in the life of this plant when these little, and supposedly these were picked at that exact moment where if you were to squeeze them, this white latex would come out. At that point, if you harvest these oat tops and then make a tincture, an alcohol extraction from it, then you get this really strong nervine action. It's calming and soothing and maybe even a little bit sedating depending on where you are at the time of the day. This, however, dried as it is, to be made into a tea will not have that same effect. It is not nearly as calming. You can buy these little oat tops like this, or you can buy oat straw, which is just the aerial parts that have kind of been all shredded up. Both are super nutrient dense, and I like them for people that don't have gluten intolerances because unlike a lot of the other green vitamins, they're not as gross tasting. Like it's not as green, chlorophyll, astringent, like blah, fish food taste, which you can mask with a lot of other herbs, just saying. You shouldn't rule them out. But I'll pass this around if you want to see them up close. They're kind of fun. Oh, the other one I absolutely have to talk about is red clover. And red clover is also one of these just really, really, really super nutrient dense herbs. I'm hoping, I like ask people all the time, I'm trying to convince some rancher here in the Sandhills to start growing fields. I was just talking to Nick last night. I was hitting him up pretty hard. Fields of red clover. This herb, right now, if you were to get on Etsy and try to buy good quality red clover, you would pay over $5 for a half an ounce. You cannot buy it. Like the major herb purveyors of our time right now are Mountain Rose Herbs, Star West Botanicals, Frontier, and then you have a whole cadre of people on Amazon, smaller people now, thank God, because anyway, long story.
Can I see it?
What's that? Oh yeah, I'll pass it all, we can all look. This is great quality. It was harvested in 2022 by a friend of mine. She handpicked all of that. The reality is a lot of what you'll buy comes looking like this, which isn't even close to that. This I got off Star West Botanicals and it was grown in Croatia. The whole jar of it's brown. You can obviously tell which of this is going to have more nutrients. Which
Is there
of
other
this?
names for this?
That's red clover. Well, it's, the Latin name is
No, I don't want.
Trifolium
It
partens.
looks like sweet clover. Too.
It is. It's red clover. It grows here.
It grows. It does grow.
It absolutely
I
grows
was like, I know I saw this.
I
in
know.
my
Yeah,
piece
this is
of
why I'm
my
trying.
rake.
I'm trying hard.
Yeah.
Like you
Me
cannot
too.
buy. It's out of stock. It's what month? It's March.
It
right?
grows
So-
wild here.
Yeah,
Okay.
it would grow.
And
It
you
would
bought
grow
it.
gangbusters, and
Yeah,
someone
okay.
could make a killing because it's
Wait,
sold out
wait,
of all of the major
go
herb
down
purveyors right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Would it be considered an invasive species if we grew it, or?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it was. I think it's like a crop for animals, right?
Yeah,
Don't you
cows
know?
love it.
Yeah.
Cows love sweet clover.
And they should, because it's super nutrient dense. If you want to pass that one around to take a look at it.
You call it red clover?
This is red clover, sweet clover and red clover, two different things.
They are
Yeah.
different. That's
Yes.
what I was wondering.
Yes.
So the red clover, like all of these herbs that we're talking about, just loaded with minerals and vitamins and wonderful. Its superpowers are that it has a whole bunch of isoflavones, which are in others phytoestrogens. The fun thing about phytoestrogens is that for all of us that are inundated with a world full of xenoestrogens, which we're getting from all of our plastics and our pesticides and all the other nasty chemicals that we're coming in contact with, having phytoestrogens in your diet can block the absorption of xenoestrogens because there's only so many receptors in your body for estrogens, and these phytoestrogens can beat out the xenoestrogens, which is pretty awesome. It's also a great herb if you have PCOS, because a lot of times people with PCOS have low estrogen and high testosterone, and those phytoestrogens they don't have the same effect as going and taking an endogenous hormone or a bioidentical hormone. It doesn't do the same thing, but it will lightly sit on those receptors or lightly bind with those receptors and can provide some relief for symptoms of.
Does that help premenopausal too?
It can.
Phytoestrogen?
It absolutely
It
can.
helped me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is one of our allies. I also like red clover. This was another one of the herbs that I turned to as I was recovering from my cold and flu because it's great for the lungs. It's nourishing to the lungs. It can help expectorate a little bit. I wouldn't say, in Western herbalists, we say it to like degrees. If it's expectorant to the 4th degree, you can't get any better expectorant than that. I would say this is like expectorant to the 2nd degree. It's not like Mullen is the king of expectorants, right? Or I like hyssop as an expectorant, or colt's foot, or horehound, but it's not quite to that level. But still, it's still good to have in your toolkit, and it tastes good, and it's gonna give you lots of minerals. Most of the herbs that we've discussed so far have been really super mineral rich. I kind of want to hop over to flavonoids. So flavonoids are antioxidant compounds that plants manufacture. They can reduce blood pressure, they can be cardioprotective, they can reduce inflammation, they can enhance immunity, they can help with oxidative stress. Flavonoids are where it's at. They are great cancer fighting. And we have some really great ones, and I'm going to show you a fun recipe on how to utilize some of them. The herb school that I most recently graduated from is renowned for their flavonoid bomb, which you can make as simple or as complicated as you want to. We're going to start with the simple version. One of the most, oh my gosh, okay, that was, almost had a heart attack. One of the most flavonoid rich herbs in our materia medica is rose hips, which, lucky for us, grow in abundance in the sandhills, and you can certainly harvest, especially around November. These guys, they're full of anthocyanins, which that is the dark pigment that does so much good for us, for our immune systems. It's in elderberry, it's in blueberries, it's in all aronia berry to the nth degree. So a nice way to utilize and get more of these flavonoids in your diet is to make a flavonoid bomb. Here's the easy way. I'm gonna fill this up. Ooh. Rose hips are cool. They also are astringent, just like pretty much all rose family plants. The rose petals are astringent, and the rose hips are astringent. The rose hips, though, are quite moistening. You'll find a lot of the fruits are moistening. I got this at Mackey's. I would have preferred to come with one of those cute little glass bottles of pomegranate juice that's just all pomegranate juice and nothing else, but this is what we have, and that's fine. It's better than nothing. It does have some pomegranate juice. It also has a whole lot of apple juice, pear juice, and grape juice. No surprise there. Citric acid. Blueberry juice concentrate, aronia berry juice concentrate at the very end. So you know that they literally took the dropper full and went, bloop. There's aronia berry in there. Probably. Okay, here we go. Here's the magic. That's it. I'm gonna leave this on my counter overnight, and then tomorrow I'm gonna put it in my fridge. And it's gonna rehydrate all of these rose hips. And believe it or not, they actually get tasty. This isn't gonna be super sweet. You could put some honey in it if you wanted to, or I'm unabashedly, the liquid stevia is over there. I'm obsessed with liquid stevia. Provided it doesn't have a bunch of stuff in it. These are gonna plump up, and it'll almost get like, not quite like jam, not quite like jelly, right? But not awful. And you could put it on toast. Gluten-free at my house. You could boil water and just take a spoonful and put it in your cup and pour hot water over it, and then you've got like tea. You can just eat it by the spoonful if that floats your boat. This is a great way to get an extra burst of these anti-inflammatory, antioxidant flavonoids. I highly recommend it. And this is an incredibly versatile recipe, because like everything in herbalism, it can be this easy or it can be a little more complicated. Let's make one a little more complicated.
Where do you get rose hips? So if you were to do that at home.
Yeah. This particular bag of rose hips came from Star West Botanicals. You can order Star West Botanicals directly from their website, or you can also often find them on Amazon.
Does that have to be picked at a certain time?
What's that?
Does that have to be picked at a
Yes.
certain time?
Yes, when they're ripe. Around here it's usually November.
There's lots of them out there, I'm not sure.
There's a lot. There's a lot. My dear friend, you may know Julie Olson, one year decided that she was going to make rosehip jam. And she spent a lot of time picking rosehips. And I think by the time she was all said and done, she made 4 little jelly jars and was literally like, I am never doing that again. But it was absolutely delicious. Absolutely amazingly delicious. It's definitely easier to buy them.
Yeah.
A lot
can do
easier. Yeah. It's a lot easier to buy them.
The boys love it.
Here we
All the things
go.
are in roast, throw it.
They're tart and sour and they're a lot of fun. Okay, so this works. This works to powder herbs. My husband, who loves me very much, bought me a super whamidine herb grinder for Christmas. And I highly recommend if you like go deep down the rabbit hole, you should get yourself one. It's life-changing. But in the meantime, this works great. The other thing that works great is if you have Vitamix, they make a dry canister. I think it's specifically probably for grains, but it works great for herbs too. So we're gonna make a fancy flavonoid bomb. And I'm gonna powder these herbs because I like the test. You know what? This is the first time I've ever done it, but I'm really excited because the texture is gonna be so much better. This method, I'm lazy, that's all. No, I'm not. I'm not lazy, I'm busy. I'm very busy. Okay, this is gonna be loud, I'm sorry. Alright, let's see what we got. Oh, where's that funnel? I'm telling you, candy funnels are an herbalist's best friend. And here we go. Okay, the next herb we're gonna add, oh my goodness. This is a favorite at our household. This is hibiscus flowers. It's actually this is one of those words that I read all the time but never say. Someone who's smart, tell me. Calyx, the outermost whorl of petals that will, did I say it right?
You did.
Yes, you did. Thank you. That will then become the fruit. Later, with the hibiscus, those become the fruit. That is what they harvest. This plant, surprise, surprise, just like, okay, we've got our green vitamins that are cold and dry and often astringent. We've got all of these flavonoid herbs that are tart, moist, sour. It's because they have similar chemical profiles, essentially, at the end of the day. And that's why learning what tastes are associated with which actions can be so valuable. So we're gonna put some bright red, absolutely beautiful, absolutely gorgeous hibiscus in here. Magic. Right. Oh, the pretty, like, swirly pink smoke that just came out of that. There we go. Okay. Next up. Okay. We have jujube dates. So, did you guys know that Cornell was a practicing clinical herbalist for over 25 years? Traditional Chinese medicine. I don't know very much about jujube dates. I'm learning. When we started dating, I started like trying all these Chinese herbs. They're okay. They're fine. They're not sweet. I don't know. They are moistening, harmonizing, which means So, remember I use that word corrugate when you have something that's like really extreme on one end and you pair it with something that's really extreme on the other end. Harmonizing is slightly different. It's a little bit the same, but it's a little bit like it brings all of the actions of all of the different herbs in a formula together, and it blunts like the hard edges, basically. What else did we learn about this? We looked it up the other day to refresh my memory on this. Oh, I remember. It's contraindicated if you have dampness in your stomach in your stomach.
Or just dampness in general.
Because they're so moistening.
It'd be considered lower burner dampness.
So if you have liver dampness, you wanna do it?
Generally, that's not a term that's used in Chinese medicine. Usually dampness is associated with the spleen or stomach. Yeah.
Which is an excess condition.
Yes.
All right, look at us. We know things. So basically, it's moistening. But what we need to know is it's moistening, and it's got a whole lot of flavonoids in it, which means it has a lot of nutritional content, anti-inflammatory. Oh, what was the other thing? I almost had it. I almost remembered something about it. Oh, maybe it'll come back to me. I don't know. We'll see how well it grinds. Oh, it was
Yeah, that may not ground too well in there.
Are they gummy, like really
Yeah,
normal
they're
dates?
very gummy.
I was hoping maybe if I take out some.
Maybe. It helps if you put a really dry herb with that. It'll
Oh,
absorb some of the moisture and make it grind better.
maybe we'll put some.
Yeah, I would mix it with something else.
What do you think? I got orange peel. Nope. Some hibiscus.
Probably just go back in with what you already
Yeah.
did.
Oh yeah, you could put in what you've already ground.
Oh, some of the already ground, or
Yeah.
some that I haven't yet.
That's a good idea. It'll absorb some of that moisture.
All right. We're experimenting. It's fine.
Yeah, grinding Romania glutinosa,
Say it. Oh, Romania.
it's the worst. Sounds a little better.
Well. Maybe we aren't going to put jujube dates in here.
Yeah, that's why I got you the heavy duty grinder.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys. This is why I'm glad that you're witnessing this fail, because it is okay to play. It is 100% okay to experiment. I had a woman that I recommend. I was a part of a clinic roundtable program last year. So as I went through herb school, all of us wrote case studies of all of the clients we were working with, and then we shared them as a group. And I had suggested the flavonoid bomb to my client, and my herb teacher recommended adding these guys, but I didn't actually make the medicine. They made the medicine, and so I missed out on the fun. I didn't know. Okay, onward. We will not be deterred. What was I gonna add? Okay. Okay, these are Lisi berries. I hope we're able to blend them. If not, we're just gonna put them in there.
That's gonna be a tough one.
What's that?
That'll be a tough one.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen, is it?
I know.
Okay, well, maybe we won't put them in there. Maybe we'll just talk about them. Maybe I'll figure out some way to make a flavonoid bomb with these guys. This is another Chinese herb that has made its way to the United States. It's popular now. I'm sure you've heard of goji berries. These are goji berries. David Winston wrote the book on adaptogenic herbs. We're going to talk a lot about adaptogens. My teacher, Paul Bergner, is very critical of this book, and he's very critical of the idea of adaptogen, of the West's obsession with taking adaptogens for energy. But according to David Winston's book, these are very tonic. They're definitely very sweet. They're definitely very anti-inflammatory. They have a ton of flavonoids in them. When you get on the internet and you look up flavonoid bombs, it's often an ingredient in flavonoid bombs. I started taking them after reading David Winston's book. There's a story in there about this old Chinese man who lived to be over 100 because he took goji berries every day. And there's again, in David Winston's book, there's this idea, he quotes some little village or some saying from China, something to the effect that you should never take goji berries away from home if you're traveling far from home, because they're supposed to be such an invigorating sexual tonic that, like, you gotta save it for the home fires.
Don't be tempted when you're out.
Exactly. I don't know if they're that tonic. I'm not sure. But again, in that book, he talks about taking these goji berries to bring down the inflammation in your joints and in your muscles. And at the time, I was having an awful lot of knee pain. Lo and behold, what I didn't need goji berries. I needed to cut out dairy and gluten and corn, but that's another story for another day. But I think the recommendation in this book was to eat 5 goji berries a day. And so I started doing that for about a minute. And I tell you what, 5 goji berries for me, I would lay them out at work. Like this. On my little counter. And experiment with my goji berries. And by about the 3rd goji berry, I would have the worst gas of my entire life. And by the 5th, I reliably had to go to the bathroom. I don't know if you would have the same experience with goji berries, but that's what they did for me. David Winston writes you can eat them like raisins, and you can put them in pilaf, and you can bake them into your muffins, and good luck. I was totally going to put them in the flavonoid bomb, but now I don't think I'm going to do that because I don't think my little grinder's going to hack it. The other one I was going to put in, and now I'm not sure it's going to hack, is orange peel. Okay, so orange peel is a part of the Chinese materia medica. Western herbalists have adopted it. I have absolutely become obsessed with orange peel. And I can't tell you that I know everything there is to know about it. And actually, this orange peel looks really sad. Cornell is absolutely obsessed with saving every single cutie rind, every single orange peel that ever goes through our house. He meticulously collects them all, and they are in piles drying everywhere.
Yeah, they're good for deodorizing the what do you call that? The
Food and the
garbage disposal. Yeah, it's good for that.
okay, more than that. And the way Western herbalists think about herbs is so different than the way the Chinese people think about herbs. I think about biochemical constituents. I think about like target tissues and which organ systems, but like I'm actually talking, when I say the heart, I mean the heart. When I say the liver, I mean the liver. When he says the liver, he's talking about something totally different than what we think of as the anatomical liver. I don't know what they do, what they use these for in Chinese medicine. But as a Western herbalist, what I have come to love about orange peel is that it thins mucus. It thins mucus when you have a cold. It thins mucus in your gastrointestinal system. It works. It works great. I wind up putting this in almost all of my tummy tea formulas now. It's in the tummy tea you're drinking tonight. I put it in almost all of my upper respiratory formulas now. And it's also absolutely positively packed with flavonoids. So the interesting thing, when you drink orange juice, you're like, I'm getting my vitamin C. You are. That's great. But the real powerhouse, the real anti-inflammatory agents are the quercetin, rutin, and hesperidin, and then a whole bunch of other flavonoids. I probably said them all wrong. But they are the flavonoids in orange peel. in the white pithy part, not in the juice, not in the flesh. It's all in the peel, which is very interesting to me.
Is it just oranges or limes and lemons in the same category?
I don't know the answer to that. I know it's an orange peel. I don't know if it's in the rest. But, so we can make a tea out of it, and we can put it in our flavonoid balm. Again, I've never put this in a flavonoid balm before. This is time number 1. We're learning community. I'm breaking it up a little bit. It's bitter. The peel is very bitter. And it's cooling. I don't know.
Can you put those through your food dehydrator without losing any of the properties that you need?
I think so, but we always just leave them all over the counter, so. And that
Yeah.
seems to work fine.
The Chinese method is to sun dry them in baskets.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right, let's see what we get.
To the left.
To the left. To the left. Go, grinder, go! All right, next time I'm bringing the big grinder in. Oh, yeah, that totally didn't work. Okay. All right.
I've ground all of those Chinese herbs. I know which ones grind and which ones don't.
And you're just watching me go in here like.
You said those ones gonna work.
Okay. Well, we're gonna grind these up and add them at home. I'm gonna bring this next month. Well, maybe not. I'll bring a new batch. Okay. So the other experiment I did for this recipe. Okay. One of my favorite, and this will be, and I'm sure you guys are all tired. I've dumped a lot of info on you. This will be the last herb we talk about. I promise. For tonight. Hawthorn. Hawthorn is amazing. Hawthorn is a tree, shrub, both, and it is both an herb for the spiritual heart and an herb for the actual physical heart. It is a cardiotonic. In sustained doses over a period of time, it doesn't happen quickly. It can bring down blood pressure. It is absolutely protective to the heart muscle, and it's incredibly, incredibly safe. Most herbs that act on the heart are not safe to take with people that have heart medications, whereas my understanding, at least from lots of reading, is that hawthorn is generally considered safe even for people who are on heart medications. Caveat, of course, is actually talk to your doctor. Don't trust me.
You mean blood pressure medicines or heart medicine? When you say heart medicines, like,
Right, so there's obviously
well, because I know there's like different.
right. Like certainly things like statins, I think it would be totally safe. Things that are helping control people's arrhythmias and things like that.
What yeah, okay.
Like, I can't say 100% for sure.
But you could take it with blood pressure medicine.
Yes. But the reason is it's not this really potent low dose botanical. It's basically a fruit. I mean, it's a fruit. It would be like, what's that?
Can we smell that?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna pass it around. I wanted to show. I brought some with you, or brought some with me to show you because it is hard as a rock, and
it's a berry.
it's a berry, and but back to our infusion page. For years and years and years, I put these in teas, and I think that was a mistake because I don't think that you're getting a lot. I don't think you're getting a lot with an infusion. I think you have to decoct the crap out of this. And actually, the strongest decoction I have ever gotten from it, I ground it. And what was crazy is I ground it and I ground it and I ground it, and even after grinding it and grinding it and grinding it, there was still a lot of it that was very gritty and very big. Like, it didn't want to go. You know what I mean? Like, these are tough little buggers. And so, thank you. So what I did, I'm so excited about this. This is the first time I've ever made this. and it's just wonderful. It's basically hawthorn berry juice. I ground up I had a cup of hawthorn berries, and I ground it into powder, and I used, 2.5 cups, 3 cups of water, and I did, like we talked about with decoctions, I boiled it on the stove with the lid for 15 minutes, and then I don't know, it was longer than that, because I reduced it. I let it simmer without a lid, and I reduced it by half. Then I strained it out, and I pressed the powder out really good, and then I mixed, I think I had 2 cups of the juice, the decoction, that I added a cup of honey to. Now that's not a good ratio for a syrup. Like the actual ratio for your syrup is 1:1, so 1 part decoction, 1 part honey will last for a month in the fridge. And then if you use 1 part decoction and 2 parts honey, it'll last for about 6 months. This won't last very long. We need to make sure we use it. But I really wanted to put the wonderful flavonoid-rich, cardiotonic, cardioprotective hawthorn berry into our flavonoid balm. And so I made this in anticipation of doing so. And I'm just we'll probably do like a whole class on syrup sometime, just because they're so much fun. And I wish I had harnessed them more when my kids were smaller, because I think I would have gotten them to take a whole lot more herbs. But now that I know better, I'm starting to mix my alcoholic tinctures with syrups almost every time I administer them. And I'm getting a lot more home compliance that way with teenagers. Not to mention, it's nice because both syrups and tinctures, like decoctions and infusions, they'll keep in your fridge for about 3 days, whereas tinctures have an infinite lifetime. And syrups, depending on how strong you make it, can last for six months in your fridge.
What is your go-to alcohol for your tinctures?
It depends. If it's dried, I like brandy, but really they all work, right?
Okay.
And I often just use vodka because it's cheap. But if you are tincturing fresh plant material, then you need something with like huge proof. I was buying like
Ethanol.
just straight ethanol. Like it had the little science lab symbol on it. Like it was some gnarly stuff.
100% alcohol.
I don't really love making medicine with alcohol much anymore. Like I do, I will, because it's got its benefits. It'll extract different constituents and it lasts a real long time, but it's just not my favorite. It doesn't feel as nourishing. It's really harsh.
Yeah.
It can be really penetrating and really beneficial. It just, I start gentle and work up.
I could see where the alcohol though would pull it into your bloodstream a little quicker than say your honey.
Yeah, I think it absolutely. I think you're right.
Because when I take a drink of alcohol, that shit goes right to my brain. I'm thinking, sugar don't have that effect. Sorry.
You're good. You're in good company. So this is gonna kind of get thick. This will get like thick and goopy, and look how pretty it is. Like, can you imagine? Like, let's say you're just grabbing a green tea bag out of your cupboard. And you just throw a scoop of this in. So this, because I made it with this syrup, that's gonna give it sweetness. But you could make a decoction. Like let's say, for example, you wanted to make something for a diabetic and so you didn't wanna use a lot of sugar. You could make some sort of juice with blueberries and blackberries that don't have a lot of sugar, like simmer it in water and like strain it and then sweeten it with stevia maybe. And then use, these herbs aren't going to have a lot of sugar in them, but they're going to have all of those wonderful flavonoids that people so desperately need. It's a great vehicle, and very, very, very versatile. This is a very versatile way to take herbs. Yeah, so I think we'll stop there. I think I dumped a lot of information on you guys, and it was kind of all over the place. Hope maybe I'll try to like streamline things a little bit more. My intention is to keep this going every month, first Wednesday of every month. I'm also working on building like an online portal so that people who want to download videos and get documents and see these talks live, or not live, but recorded, can do that. So I will keep you posted as that unfolds. What do you guys want to talk about next month? Does anyone have any ideas? How many people are gardeners?
Dabble.
Would people be interested in learning about what to plant?
100%.
What herbs grow around here and would do well in our gardens? I might be calling Becky and be like, you're gonna have to help me.
That'd be really cool.
I'm gonna talk about
Stack
herbs.
of books so we can all learn together.
Well, and that's truly, that's the beauty of groups like this, because there's a lot of misinformation about herbs that gets passed along in herb books, just from person to person to person that hasn't had a clinical practice, that hasn't actually taken a lot of herbs. It's kind of rampant, it's a little unsettling. The best way to learn is to learn as a group and to learn what actually works. So people are trying and sampling and experimenting, and then we can come together and share recipes and say, this was great for me, this really helps, or not. You know, there were so many other things that I thought we might talk about tonight. We can go as deep as you want. There is no end to this. So, yeah, April 2nd at 6 o'clock, we'll talk about herbs for our Nebraska
I think
Sandhills
when we
Gardens.
do that, then like each herb, like list the things, the benefits we can get from that.
Yes,
Cause we kinda did that today, but I was like, oh wait.
I was
like-
all over the place
yeah.
so fast. I
I mean, I
appreciate
just-
your feedback
yeah,
a
I
ton,
Don't
and we
mean-
can
but like,
absolutely do that.
Like I'm like in my head, I mean to be like, okay, this herb, this,
Yes,
and like personally, I don't even know about all that bio stuff. I'm like, I'm not gonna remember this part. I just need to know what it's gonna do for my family.
okay,
Personally.
no, I
That's-
totally yes.
But I think for this next time, if we're thinking of growing it in our gardens, this is the right time of year to.
Yeah,
do
Yeah,
that.
very
yeah.
true, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
I will probably still throw in a little biochemical
No, of
research
course.
because I can't help myself. But I will.
Passion for it, but, yeah.
I will try.
No, I think that's
It was great.
interesting.
It was so good.
Included, yeah.
Yes. No, I wasn't.
I
that
did
was
not
just-
take it as a criticism
Okay,
at all.
okay.
At all. I appreciate.
I mean, it down.
Yes.
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 I love you guys. Okay.
Alright,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very